Masters of the Universe!
Hey everybody, welcome to a quick peek, Hero Speak, hopefully 10-minute review of He-Man, no, not He-Man, Masters of the Universe Revelation. Here with me today, I am your host, Chris.
Yeah, it is.
It is
Yeah,
Revelations.
Revelations. Yeah,
I am
Revelations.
your host, Chris. With me today, I have James and Mike, and we are going to talk about this Netflix animated action adventure series. This 10 episodes were written by the one and only Kevin Smith. All right, we're going to do this, and we're going to try not to take forever here. This is called specifically Masters of the Universe, not He-Man. And that really for a good reason, and that's because it's a giant toy commercial, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, the one we watched as a child was a giant toy commercial.
All
So
right.
that's nothing new. Nothing new. All right,
I
Michael.
had some little messages at the end each episode.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
You've heard of this. You've seen this, right? You know what that is.
It is unavoidable. It is your destiny.
Is this not why you are here?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Knock that shit off.
Mike, what is your first response to the series Masters of the Universe? What did you feel coming out of that?
So the trailer got me excited. I was looking forward to the show. Plus, when I saw what Kevin Smith was doing, I was like, all right, this will be an interesting take, right? And I wasn't disappointed. I thoroughly enjoyed it. There's a lot of haters out there, but I don't think I was one of them because I understand that this is part one. Part two's coming, so we'll see what happens, right? I did animation style was okay for me. The story was okay. The characters, seeing the modern version of these characters was nice. You know, I didn't see. I think there was another reboot not too long ago or something.
Yeah, there was
I never watched that one, so I don't know. I can't compare how that
worse
was.
than this. It's worse than this.
Okay, so, but I did. It did keep me interested. See, they went to all these different realms. I thought it was cool. I don't think we ever touched upon that on our Gen X version of the show.
I think everything that happened in our Gen X version was,
An Eternia.
Skeletor to take over. He does something stupid. He-Man hits him in the ass.
Yeah, it was very basic. Very basic.
And then tells him to brush his teeth as he runs away.
Don't do that again. Yeah,
That's right.
Drink your milk.
Bad Skeletor. Bad Skeletor. Drink.
Right.
Milk is good for you. Helps your bones.
Yeah.
Back then, before we all became vegans. But yeah.
So it was nice to see. If we compare it to that, this was maybe a little bit more grown up version of it. Definitely. I don't remember any blood or anything in our version of that show. So
No,
this was
definitely not.
Yeah, out of the blue where people were dying, right? So
Yeah, is your childhood still intact after this?
yeah, I think I'm all right. We'll
Okay,
see.
okay,
I'm waiting.
good.
I'm waiting for the Thundercats.
All right, James, what did you think of Masters of the Universe?
I've had some time to digest. My first gut reaction was this was terrible. It was a terrible show. My first gut reaction. But after some time reading some backstories about how the show was made, a lot of Kevin Smith interviews. To Mike's point earlier about the trailers coming in, yeah, my expectations of this was pretty high because of the trailers that was released. 2 trailers, I believe, led me to believe this was going to be like a reboot of the He-Man Masters of the Universe 1980s cartoon, not so much like a follow-up or a sequel after 30 years. So the trailers really excited me. Kevin Smith talking about how this was made for the He-Man fans, and again, words from the show creator, He-Man fans. So, and again, I watched it with my 12-year-old son who barely remembers the VHS tapes that I played, the He-Man original. So we were both going in oh, let's go, popcorn and Twizzlers, 11 o'clock Friday night. halfway through episode 2, I was like, "What the freak? Like, this is not what I expected." And then he was telling me, "You know what, Dad? I watched She-Ra. She-Ra's much better than this," because he was trying to say this was like the Tila show. This is not necessarily He-Man show. So we watched it through the late night too. Watched it all the way through the end, and I think after like some days of really thinking about it, it's not as bad as my first gut instinct was telling me. I see where they took some creative liberties, and the animation, I think Mike mentioned it. I really did like the animation. I like the action sequences. It's not as good as some of the Japanese anime that I know Chris is like, an expert on. But it was intriguing to see some of those action sequences done in that artistic way. Um, my biggest issue really is the story and the characters in the story. The voiceovers of Mark Hamill, by the way, didn't do it for me for Skeletor, and I'm a huge Mark Hamill fan.
Yeah.
So I think just the high level summary of the show. I can't say I did not. I didn't enjoy it. I still felt like this show deserves this. I want to know what part 2 is going to be out. I'm intrigued. I want to see what part 2 is about because I want to see where this goes. But yeah, I'm in a tough, quandary here of this show. Like I'm like, it's not an F, it's not a C. It's somewhere in there. As Eric is about to walk in here.
Only there was a grade between those two.
I know, but I reserve that D for doo-doo grades for actual real movies,
Yeah.
not for
So
animation.
the thing is, for me, Sid, like I don't even want to grade it yet until I see part 2 because
Yes,
if we're
that's
gonna go
what
ahead and
it is.
spoil it,
It's unfair.
killed-
It's unfair.
they killed Adam in the beginning, then they kill him
They kill him
again at the
again.
end. But obviously, it's a cliffhanger. We're not going to kill Adam and He-Man because
And this
he's
whole
the main.
Tila arc story is definitely underdeveloped. There's got to be more
Right.
about this character. So I can't give it a fair grade yet. It's incomplete.
But yeah, so after part 2 comes out and I watched the whole thing, a complete story, like that's all I feel. Like we don't have a complete story here yet.
All right.
And that's fine.
All right,
you
let's
know,
hear
it's not-
Chris. I want to hear Chris's
Yeah.
take.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. This is. I do not have the relationship with He-Man that probably a lot. I watched some He-Man. I never had any of the action figures. It just wasn't. It wasn't my childhood. Wasn't wrapped as much as some of the other media that we've talked about and watched. So like I don't have that connection that I'm sure deep down people love or hate because of. That being said, this is definitely a bait and switch, and I don't like it when these creators. Do you guys remember the Star Trek J.J. Abrams? This is not Khan.
Yes.
Like
Right.
this
Terrible.
idea. This idea of these companies are like, oh, they figured out what we're doing. Shit, we better just lie to them. Like the whole idea of episode 1 or episode 1. Sorry, guys. Episode 7, where they had Finn with the lightsaber, and then it's like, nope, he's not the Jedi. See, isn't that a great trick? And you're like, okay, I like Rey as a character. I like Tila as this character was fine, but I stop lying to the fans and just if they figure out the story, they figure out the story. Unfortunately, it's kind of the world we live in right now. Like I don't like this.
Yeah.
If someone says, "Oh, is this really about Tila?"
Right now, it
kind
is.
of just say, "Yeah, well, he's one of the characters." Yes, Tila. Tila is.
I
just
will
played
say,
heavily.
I thought this version of Man at Arms was really cool, and Orko.
You know what they
So
said though? Going back to the Tila point, because obviously Kevin Smith was getting,
Hammered. Yeah.
raked
Yeah.
over the coals about this show, and he made one of his few responses that wasn't like crazy. He was like, "Listen, he thought that the Tila character was a very interesting character in the original series, where she's the only one that didn't know the secret. So he wanted to really put a spotlight on that for this show." And I'm
Okay.
like, I went back real quick and some of the YouTubes, yeah. Boring weekend. And I'm like, Tila was a very instrumental character in the original show already. She wasn't underserved. Like there were characters like her, Man at Arms, Sorceress, obviously, that were dominant. They were pride of the show. Then you had like Ram Man, other second tier and third tier. Like
Yeah.
I didn't like I think Kevin Smith in his mind when he's saying, "Well, I wanted to showcase some of these characters a little bit more in part one, like Tila," and I'm like, Tila was like dominant. In fact, the Tila in the original show to me was much smarter, less rash, less abrasive. Like I really liked the Tila in that first the 80s cartoons compared to this Tila he's giving me that's supposed to be like a better version of her. So
Mm.
it's like Kevin Smith right now is in a tough position trying to defend the show because not everyone's coming to it like he probably imagined it would be, and his excuses for it so far, whether it be the Tila show or part two's coming, guys, there's more to it. I'm like, it's not hitting me.
I think I rather overall I thought it was a solid show. So I'm even though I think some of that's coming from because I don't have any specific knowledge of any history of any of these characters. It's so bare minimum for me. So you say Tila, I'm like, there was a character named Tila. Sure, why not? I don't remember that at all. Like she
Mm.
was underserved. Sure, why not? I don't know. So like when it started and he's trying to use that first episode to build a relationship between Adam and Tila and Man at Arms, that's really important for someone watching like me because that needs to land for the rest of your story to really land. And
Gotcha.
I thought it was okay. I thought that first episode was fine and it worked okay. Not as well. So, but all the surprises were like I was like, holy shit! Did he just do that? Can you do that? Can you kill he? Like that shit was actually quite a surprise for me, and I thought it was
Yeah,
interesting.
I give you that. I give you that.
Mm.
Is that the right way to go? Is to just go off and kill what everybody expects to be the lead character and go on to somebody else? Maybe,
I mean, if
maybe
you're trying to
not.
do Game of Thrones, yeah, you kill the A-list actor the very first season and then have everybody on their toes. I get that, but that's not what they're doing. Let's be honest. Mattel, which is the driving force behind this show, they gotta sell toys. He-Man is their most popular toy outside of like Barbies and certain other things. They have He-Man's coming back in part two. I
Well,
get that.
Well,
yeah.
My,
Skeletor,
my, my issue my
which
issue
I
has
thought was
nothing to
good.
do with like yeah my issue has nothing to do with killing Skeletor. Thank you. My
Mm.
issue has nothing to do with them killing off He-Man and them killing off or temporarily Skeletor or whatnot. It was more
Mm.
like the rest of the show. Like that was a great way to start episode one. I'm like, all right, now I'm invested. Like there's stakes in this show.
Yeah,
You
I
know, it
was
wasn't like the
surprised. I was
cartoons.
really.
But then the story was like, oh my gosh, so we're focusing on Tila after this whole issue where now all of a sudden she's angry and they don't explain us why she's angry. They tell us because she felt like she's the only one that didn't know Prince Adam was He-Man. So she turns against her country. By the way, she reached the status of like basically becoming like the sergeant of arms of the Air Force. Nope.
Mm.
She turns against her country, turns against her king and queen, turns against her dad, turns against everyone. And all of a sudden she's a mercenary with a random girl who to me, I was like, I didn't quite get the dynamic of the relationship. I don't know what they're trying to tell us, where they're dating, where they're just best friends. And then it took her friend to take the mission from Evelyn at the time we didn't know to say, no, let's go on this adventure. Tila's like, no, no. She goes, well, I'm gonna do without you. Well, I can't let you go, but like my issues with this has nothing to do with killing off He-Man or any of this. It has to do with the
Mhm.
story that was written and the way it played out and
Yeah.
I found lazy writing.
I don't. I think it was again. I'll agree with you that the Tila first episode of Tila's relationship and why she would make those weird decisions to become a a person without a country because Adam lied to her was pretty weak. That you would need more build up. I think something to show something more with that character that shows that is a logical outcome for this event than just going, oh, damn that Adam, I'm not going to his funeral because he didn't tell me, right? So
Yeah.
I agree with you, James, that was kind of a weird thing. Now, after that weird decision, and okay, so you get this character who's a tough character, but they need her to come back and be part of this uh, magic revival group. That was a fun story. I thought that was good and interesting.
That was fun.
And I love Orko. Give me that all day. Evelyn. Give me that all
My
day.
favorite part. My two
Yeah, I
favorite. You just
really-
name me my two favorite parts of the entire
I
show.
really liked Evelyn's character throughout this.
Mm-hmm. And
part.
Evelyn.
Part.
I should have looked it up. Sarah
Those are the
Michelle Gellar.
pluses.
Sarah
Sarah
Michelle
Michelle Gellar
Gellar
plays
voiced
Tila. She plays Tila.
Lita Headey.
Yeah, Cersei
Lena
Lannister.
Headey.
Yes, Cersei
Yeah.
Lannister. Sarah Connor.
Also Gunpowder Milkshake. She's in that.
Yes.
Yeah, great voice cast. And I actually, like you said, like Man at Arms was this weird, cool, like Logan character. Like, what happened with him? He's awesome now. Like, I don't remember any of these characters being this awesome.
Yeah, he didn't have the cereal bowl anymore.
Yeah. So
That's what
I
Eric
like-
was looking for. He asked, "Where's the cereal bowl?"
I also liked that they were still allowed some goofiness, some weirdness, some bad jokes, some cheesiness.
Yeah,
Even with the villains. Yeah, I like that
Yeah.
part.
with Tricroft and Lockjaw.
This show to me, there's some good moments, Chris, that I have to
Mhm.
tell you. You picked on my two favorite characters, Orko and Evelyn. By
Mhm.
far, really kept me whatever scenes that they're in. I was sharp
Mhm.
in watching. I really felt like, not just the voice acting, but their storylines was something new and a twist, especially Evelyn. Like I really liked her entire story arc up until the finale with Skeletor and stuff like that.
Mhm.
That to me saved the show from me saying it was a total like disappointment.
Well, the whole scene where he's telling her about how he's afraid of
Yes.
his his fears.
When they're in
and
Subternia,
she's
yeah.
building him up. I thought that was great. I
Yeah.
thought that was a great.
And I
moment.
thought she would remember that at the end with Skeletor,
Yeah.
but obviously it was too early. I also thought they would do something better than his grave. Like, dude, sacrifice themselves for you guys. Are you just gonna come on, man?
Yeah. What did you guys think of the heaven scene with the previous He-Mans? Not He-Mans? Are they all He-Mans? Or are they
Yeah, so
all-
what I didn't realize until I did some research after I watched the show is the cartoon that He-Man was based on later on, or the cartoon that followed the show, had like a whole history of the champions of the universe. So He-Man wasn't the original. There's all these different characters. And the Grayskull guy, the Conan looking guy, he's actually was the first one they drew. When they were trying to draw for He-Man, that was the first character they drew for He-Man. The sorceress looking figure. So to them, they're telling you that it wasn't just He-Man's, also the sorcerers of Grayskull would also be considered champions of
Gotcha. Yeah.
of Grayskull. So I thought that was pretty neat that they had like a Valhalla style
Mhm.
moment for them, and that they weren't monitoring what's happening on Earth. Like Prince Adam, he
Didn't
chose
care.
his regular form. He had no clue what happened after he made his ultimate sacrifice. I thought that was pretty cool. That's a
Yeah.
pretty cool concept. I like that part.
So
Yeah.
if we're not really doing grades, I guess at this halfway point, but I think we're all interested to see the second half of this.
Yeah, for me, this kind of was like it was like a long act one for me, or at least that's what I'm hoping. This is just like a long act one, and then the whole
Yeah.
meat and potatoes of it will come. And if I want to compare this, I'm going to compare this to the Transformers, the new Transformers on Netflix. The part one of that was way better
Yes.
than this part one. So that's all I
Superb.
can compare it to.
Chris, you have to watch that and then benchmark that against this show, part one.
Yeah.
And bring back the one last thing is the animation style is I think it felt like what as a kid you thought you were watching. Because if you go back and look, it's like
It's terrible.
One frame.
Yeah, it's terrible.
yeah, it's
They repeat frames a lot too. They repeat
yeah, which is fine. You understand what it was.
They save
at
money,
the
right.
time, and they're saving money. But I thought it was pretty
Four
good.
colors.
There were some. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't like the best thing I'd ever seen, but it worked for the show and for what it was. And I think overall, I think it's pretty good. It would be interesting to see how he gets around where we ended up in the last episode. I was, again, you're like, what is he thinking? Like what? So I guess if you leave people wondering, then they'll more likely to come back. I guess for
Yeah,
part two.
I hope he doesn't follow his last projects in CW, the DC TV universe, because he hasn't been doing well. I hope, please, that he's got some other writers around him that's going to
Mhm.
help him in part 2 and part 3.
Yeah,
Imagine there's 3 parts of this, right?
he's definitely
hope
one of
so.
those geeks that everything equally, or apparently does. So
Yeah.
we
I'll
need
never
somebody
forget
with
his
a
review at BVS. Never forget how he said it was the best thing ever.
we need somebody to give him a firm no, kind of like someone who should have done to George Lucas. You know what I mean? These guys who get a little full of themselves. They need a second voice in the room, please.
Yeah, Kathleen Kennedy.
She does. She's got a groove.
Sycophants. All right.
Cool.
All right, that's where we are on Masters of the Universe Revelation. You can watch it on Netflix right now, and I would suggest we're all going to suggest you go watch it and let us know. Let us know what you
Give
think.
it a shot.
Yeah, leave a comment below. Let us know what you think of the show.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining me on this, and
See you
I'm
next
gonna get
time.
some sleep. See you next time.